Hulk Hogan may be worried about jabroni marks working themselves into a shoot, but no one in the history of pro wrestling has protected themselves as much as the Immortal One. Hogan taking a loss was as rare as a Sensical Ultimate Warrior promo, and seeing his shoulders pinned to the mat for the 1, 2, 3 literally never happened. Outright refusing to lose to someone or playing his favourite creative control card, Hogan treated his spot like it was his third child. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and this is 10 wrestlers Hulk Hogan refused to lose against. Number 10. Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake the Snake Roberts is one of the greatest professional wrestlers in history. Even years after his initial run, Jake is still talked about in the highest regard, and rightfully so, but such things mean nothing to the Hulkster. During a 1986 WWF Challenge Snake Pit segment, the two got into a scripted argument that ended when Jake dropped Hogan with his patented DDT. The seeds had been planted for a title feud that would surely set business on fire, only it never happened. Jake's attack was met with cheers by those in attendance, which surprised many in the back and, more importantly, shocked Hogan more than his failed Pastamania restaurant. Why wouldn't America lap up a Hulk-themed pasta dining experience? And why in the hell was he getting booed? Terrified that Roberts may be a legit challenger to his top babyface position, the skit never aired on TV. Instead, Jake moved across to a program with Randy Savage and, eventually, a proper face turn as he battled the Honky Tonk Man, which is just as good as scrapping with Hulk. Hogan later claimed he didn't think the feud would draw money, hence why he nixed it, and why he then battled Kamala, because the dollars are all over that one. Number 9. Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig. Curt Hennig was a legendary performer. His 1988 Mr. Perfect gimmick is still remembered fondly today, made all the more special as Hennig told everyone how good he was, and then backed it up. Going undefeated on TV for over a year, a run that must have kept Hogan up at nights, Perfect teamed up with manager The Genius to set their eyes on the biggest prize in the game. Incredibly, The Genius actually defeated Hogan by countout before he and Perfect destroyed Hulk's championship. This would set up a face-off as the two found themselves as the last competitors in the 1990 Royal Rumble. Hogan tossed Perfect out that night, which led to Hennig facing Brutus Beefcake at WrestleMania 6. Hang on, what? He gets thrown over the top rope in January and then loses to Hogan's mate in April. Turns out the Hulkster never even considered Perfect a worthy contender for his title, let alone someone he would feud with. Hulk took on giant heels, not incredible workers who had the audacity of being small. Number 8. The Macho Man Randy Savage. Hulk Hogan's antics wound up Randy Savage so much he released a rap album in 2003, which was basically a big up yours to his rival. It's easy to see why too. Still standing as one of wrestling's greatest rivalries, Macho Man couldn't do anything without his old mate Terry turning up as if he was his mum. He even appeared when Savage won his first WWF Championship at WrestleMania 4. Just leave it, Hulk. Let the man have his moment, you controlling toad. But that was how Hogan treated Savage constantly. He turned down a match with him at WrestleMania 2. He agreed to drop the title to Andre the Giant, in dubious circumstances, with the promise he would win it back at WrestleMania from the Macho Man. Hogan even made sure the Mega Powers happened just so he could remain at the top of the card without being champion. Once he had his title back, Hulk continued in the same vein when a planned rematch between the two at SummerSlam 1989 was replaced. And what was it replaced with? Hulk Hogan and always on-hand Best Bud Beefcake against Macho Man and Zeus, the dude who was in Hulk's No Holds Barred movie and was not a wrestler and who couldn't even act. Throw in that Hogan's meddling saw Macho's scheduled title win at the Royal Rumble go to Sergeant Slaughter and halted his 2 WCW reigns at a day each, and Randy Savage could have killed Hulk Hogan and we would have understood. A mere rap album seems incredibly tame. Number 7. The Ultimate Warrior. Yes, Hulk Hogan did allow his shoulders to be pinned to the mat by the Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6, but let's look at the facts. Hulk kicks out almost as soon as referee Earl Hebner's hand counts the 3, and he steals all of the Warrior's limelight by handing the title over personally. This wasn't a man passing the torch. Hogan may as well have glued said torch to his face. This loss would return to haunt the Warrior though, as Hogan orchestrated a whole WCW program to ensure he got his win back. Brought in for the sole reason that Hulk wanted to avenge the crime he had suffered, he and Warrior had a match at Halloween Havoc 1998 where Hogan came out on top. Not that anyone cared. The match was so bad most people were more concerned about losing 14 minutes of their life. Know too that the main event of SummerSlam 1991 was meant to be the Hogan Warrior rematch, but Hulk already had the belt, so it was turned into that weird match made from hell instead where the two teamed together. Thanks a lot, Hogan. Number 6. Ric Flair. Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan was the biggest match imaginable in the early 90s. The faces of pro wrestling. The two clashing was enough to make people explode with excitement. So when Flair joined Vince McMahon in 1991 and won the title at the 1992 Royal Rumble, all the pieces were in place for a huge main event at WrestleMania 8. But it never happened. With Hogan refusing to lose to Flair and Flair refusing to lose to Hogan, the match simply vanished into the abyss. It didn't sour their relationship either, with the Nature Boy often citing how influential he was in getting Hogan to WCW in 1994. Leopards never changed their spots though, and the Hulkster smelled blood. As planned, Hogan relieved Flair of the WCW Championship on his way in, but the agreed rematch never took place. Fans just weren't ready to see Hogan lose the title. According to him anyway, and the two slowly went their separate ways. Hell would freeze over in 1999 when Flair scored a pinfall victory over Hogan at Uncensored, but to accept that as a clean win would be laughable. The count happened quicker than a Hogan knee injury. Number 5. Bret Hart. Imagine at this year's WrestleMania, The Rock just came out after the main event was over and beat the champion. There was no reason why, no logic, no nothing. He just did it because he was The Rock. And everyone loves The Rock, right? Well, most people do love The Rock, but messing with the status quo too much will raise even the most easygoing fan's eyebrow, a situation that rings true when looking at the mess that was WrestleMania 9. With Yokozuna defeating Bret Hart to become champ, Hogan marched to the ring to demand a match with Yoko and won the title. As rumors raged he refused to compete in his earlier tag bout unless he had his moment at the end of the night, a chain of events began that only served one man. Instead of building to the obvious and anticipated Bret vs Hogan match, Hulk told everyone that Hart wasn't on his level or a believable threat. Forget that Hogan had left the company again soon after WrestleMania 8. When he was in the building, it was his rules. After eventually losing the belt back to Yokozuna in the most screwy finish of all time, Hogan refused to do what the wrestling business is built on and cement Bret as the man. Imagine Andre had said the same at WrestleMania 3. Now Hulkamania for you, brother, or the lies you love to tell about it. Number 4. Jeff Jarrett. Some wrestling storylines leave you scratching your head, but trust Hogan to be involved when one becomes all-out baffling. There's many versions of the 2000 Bash of the Beach debacle, but one goes thusly. Hulk incredibly had agreed to lose to then-champion Jeff Jarrett. So far, so good, but not so Hogan. On the day of the pay-per-view, Hulk remembered who he was, pulled his creative control card and said he would be walking away with the big gold belt. At the start of the match though, Jarrett just laid down and let Hogan pin him, which is the equivalent of taking kayfabe out back and shooting it in the head. The real American then cut a shoot promo trashing the company and left the building. The whole thing was ridiculous, made worse when writer Vince Russo scratched that, I want to be on TV itch, and cut his own shoot promo revealing Hogan's actions earlier that day. He then stripped him of the belt and set up a new title match between Jarrett and Booker T, which the latter won. What? What even is this? This got worse when Hogan claimed he was double-crossed, while Russo remained adamant the two were in on the whole thing together. It was awful, stupid television, but it did have one redeeming upside. Hogan never lost to Jarrett. And that's the point, right? Number 3. Shawn Michaels. Age is no object to Hulk Hogan. He's the equivalent of a granddad running onto the pitch, pushing their grandson out the way to revel in their glory. This was proven yet again in 2005 when HBK turned heel on then tag team partner Hogan so the two could have a legend versus legend match at that year's SummerSlam. With the plan being to trade wins, leaving a rubber match up in the air for an undetermined point in the future, the problem started when Hogan insisted Michaels played the bad guy. He couldn't possibly share his cheers with someone else. Furthermore, as the day approached, Hulk revealed he could only have one match as his knees hurt. This same excuse a child uses to get out of PE, Hogan had politicked his way to a win yet again. Number 2. Randy Orton. Randy Orton was the legend killer, with WWE seeing a big future for the young superstar. Veteran after veteran lined up in order to get Orton over. Dusty Rhodes, Jake Roberts, Ric Flair, Sergeant Slaughter, Harley Race, and even the aforementioned Shawn Michaels all did what was best for business to heighten Randy's star in some way. To seal the deal, Hogan agreed to take a loss as long as WWE helped promote his daughter Brooke's new album, which no one could have saved, because it was terrible. When SummerSlam 2006 rolled around though, Hogan won. Clean, at 53 years of age. Then he left the company. Pete's sake. Number 1. Steve Austin. Before Hogan joined WCW, stunning Steve Austin was the US champion and, if you believe some stories, primed for a run with then world champ Ric Flair, until Hulk came aboard, completely shifted events and left Austin in his dust. Wind the clock forward to WrestleMania 18 and the wrestling landscape was very different. WCW was dead, Hogan was back with the WWE and, unsurprisingly, wanted a match with Stone Cold. Knowing his checkered past though, the Rattlesnake turned down any potential encounter after Hogan insisted he be the one to go over? An outcome that makes as much sense as eliminating Daniel Bryan from the 2015 Royal Rumble, although they did do that one. Hogan was back to his usual tricks in the mid-2000s, pushing for another match, but Austin would not be deterred. After seeing the debacle with Shawn Michaels, the Texan stayed well clear. We think it was probably the right decision. While it's unlikely we'll ever see Hogan in a WWE match again, always be warned that he's sniffing around for another victory. Let us know if you're scared of Hogan beating you in the comments, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and you can find me on Twitter at SimonMiller316. I'm Simon from WhatCulture, and let's chat again soon.